Apologies there for a slight difficulty there my apologies for the slight difficulty earlier. The music got us out of it, and my thanks to Andrew McCracken for guiding us through the technological hiccup that occurred. I'm with Shane McGivern of Newry and Mourne Museum. How are you, Shane? It's nice
Very
to
well.
see you.
Great
You have a great
here.
exhibition coming up at the end of the week up in Bagnall's Castle. And I recall about 9 months ago I was with you when we did something on the Reside collection.
We did.
It was
we
great
did indeed.
fun.
It was good fun, and I think you might have found someone.
Well, I did actually, because I suddenly discovered from the Reside collection that there was a hand who lived and worked in the stone trade on the Commons in Ballyholland.
Yep, that's
well,
right.
that was quite a surprise.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a remarkable occurrence indeed. Because my grandfather hand, in these days, he came from Donegal, and then he went to Carrickmacross to Newry to his line. That's the way they came, you see.
Yeah.
And not just him alone, but the rest of them before him did. So the event on Friday, the exhibition, is about land ownership in our area.
It is indeed.
Give me the broad parameters of it, if you would.
Well, it really focuses on. I'm sure you've heard of the halls, the Hall Estate in Warren Point.
Yeah.
Focuses on the halls of Warren Point and also the Rosses of Rostrevor.
Oh yes.
There are also other areas are covered, such as Mayo Bridge and Ballyholland, but the centrepiece actually of the whole exhibition, we have a beautiful, it's like an illuminated charter room, and it's really nice. It's belonging to a man called Charles Russell.
Yes.
He's
the Lord Chief Justice
of
England.
He was the first Catholic Lord Chief
Wow,
Justice
there you are.
of England and Wales, and his family earlier in the year, they kindly donated what's called a letters patent, and it dates to 1884, and this was conferring on to this title, Baron Russell of Cologne, and it's a lovely illuminated manuscript, and it's very attractive looking, and you know, it's really a jewel now in the exhibition.
But the exhibition then, talking about land ownership, it features quite substantially the halls and the Rosses.
It does. We have an accompanying booklet to go alongside it, sort of for interpretation, but the exhibition itself, well, it's made up mostly of documents from that Reside collection that I showed to you.
Yeah.
Now, the Rosses, they're represented. We have a lovely lease which has the signature of a man called Robert Ross. Now, I'm sure you heard of Major General Robert Ross.
Oh yes, of course, the fellow who took the White House.
Yes, well,
raised his own army here and took them out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it has his uncle's signature, also called Robert Ross. So
my goodness,
that's dating back to 1785.
That's amazing.
So that's quite nice.
1785.
Yeah. We've also a lovely going over to the halls. We've a beautiful lease dating to 1786 when the hall then was called Savage Hall.
Why was it called Savage
Well,
Hall?
that was his name. He was called Savage Hall.
He was Savage before Hall.
Well, there was Savage Hall, Roger Hall. That was his actual name.
Was Savage his Christian
That was
name?
his Christian name, yes.
Oh, these aristocrats, how strange they name themselves.
Well, a lot of them would have taken their names from mothers-in-law or maiden names and things like that.
They would have taken it as a Christian name.
Yeah, they would have taken it in order to continue that name on. I'm not sure where that Savage. I think the Savages of Portaferry are linked in, so it's possible that that's where that comes in. But it's very interesting, even seeing at that time what was part of a lease, what were the sort of conditions. In that lease, you'll see that as part of the payment, he had to give him 2 fat turkeys. But that's the sort of things that were,
2 fat turkeys.
Yeah.
It just is.
That's what was important back then.
Yeah, well, of course. Now, these people, how did the halls in those days make their money, and how did the Rosses make their money?
It was through rent.
They were renting out.
The halls actually,
farms.
but the halls would have bought that land. They would have encompassed all of Warren Point, which I'm sure, have you heard of Ring McElroy?
Yes, I have, of course.
That would be the townland. So it would encompass that, and Bourne and Ochnamira.
Oh, yeah.
Clonallen.
They owned all of that.
They owned quite a large estate around there. They also owned out in Mullaglass out there, out towards Points Pass. So they would have bought that in the late 1600s, and they would have been had tenants. They would have been paying their money. So like that there in itself, would have been enough to keep them.
And would the Rosses have been in the same kind of situation?
They would have been the same. Yeah. We have it's a rental dating back to 1809. When the Ross, it features the names Robert Ross, who is the famous Robert Ross.
The famous one, yeah.
His brother and his brother-in-law, when their estate was broken up between them, so they had to get a valuation done. And some of the things you even see on it, like paper mills and old barrack greens. Now it's not on display, but we do an interpretation of that in the booklet. Yeah. But getting back to the halls, what's very interesting about the halls is, and Warren Point today as really it's still sort of a holiday, sort of a seaside town.
Absolutely, yeah. It has that feel to it.
Yeah. Well, Warren Point was first developed really, I don't know if you know this either, maybe you do, but Warren Point was first developed really only in the late 1700s. So the dock was built in the late 1760s.
Yes.
And before that, there was maybe only one house in the whole area. So what the halls envisaged was not, the way in Newry you would have, a lot of them are gone now, but you would have seen tall chimney stacks and mills and very much industrial. If you go to Warren Point, you'll notice there's very little of that, and that's not.
They had a windmill.
They had a windmill, yes.
That was about all.
That was built in 1802 by Turners, but really and truly there was, if you notice, it's not because those old mills are gone, it's just because it wasn't there, because the halls wanted that to be a place where people could go and enjoy themselves for their health reasons.
Yes.
So that's what they built it around, and you see a massive, between 1800 and 1820s and 30s, you see a massive expansion of that town. Well-built houses. Halls actually invited people to deliberately to build he wanted stone-built houses with slate roofs and things like that.
And would they have sold individual plots to people to do this building?
Again, it would have been leasing. It would have been leasing the land.
They never sold.
Well, in some cases they would have, but for the most part they didn't need to sell.
Yeah.
So. But when you say that about selling land in the 1850s, that's when things went wrong. Not for the halls now so much, but that's where I'll maybe bring the Rosses in, because you had a thing called the Encumbered Estates Court was set up.
Wow.
Now, following the famine had a massive impact on local landlords here. Yes. Now you have to think of, as I said to you there, the chief income for a lot of these landlords was the farming, was the rent. All these people were leaving. A lot of people don't maybe associate Newry more as a place affected, but people were emigrating. Newry was a port of emigration.
Affected in a different way by the famine.
Well, maybe not so much, but there was potato failure here.
Yeah.
It was here, and
but people got clear of it. They headed off.
Yeah.
With the ease of the ship going out, both from Warren Point and from Newry.
Yeah, and Warren Point even was more of a main port, because the larger ships couldn't come up until 1850.
I understand.
But what happened then in the aftermath with these people leaving and with these rents being lost, and you notice in, for example, the Kilmorey records I was showing you, you notice these massive arrears are starting to build up around that, and it's the same for Halls and it's the same for Rostrevor. So with that, these encumbered estates, this encumbered estates court was set up in order to sell land on the application of the landlord. Think about NAMA today. It's funny how
there's nothing new under the sun.
No. So what we have up there are a lot of, basically, when the landlords, when they wanted to get rid of this land, they done up these nice catalogues, really sales catalogues.
Yes.
So you have different information about the tenant and the lives, and you've maybe a couple of nice illustrations, and that's what happened for some of the Ross estate. David Robert Ross, he had to petition in order to get this land sold off. Okay. So it wasn't all plain sale. Yeah. Halls didn't seem to really get so much affected by that. Yeah. Maybe some landlords took their rents down and whatnot.
Having been a former tenant of the halls,
right.
I rather think they showed the same kind of concern to get a good tenant in those days as they did in this age.
I'm sure they did.
Well, it's happening on Friday, yes.
It's starting on Friday, and it's going to run through until February 28th.
It's well worth people taking in.
It is, because you know, as I was saying
Did you
there,
say February 28th?
Until February,
Well,
yeah.
it's a full year.
It's almost, yeah, almost.
Absolutely.
Really interesting things. I'll just tell you a little bit about some of the maps.
Yeah.
We have a map of, it's dating to 1834, Rowan, and it's excellent. It's got the townlands of Crone and Carr Crossing, which are out round Mayo Bridge. And now the map's lovely and it's massive and it's beautiful, but what's significant is you have these list of names and the numbers that attribute to them. So you have names like Morgan, O'Hare, Trainer, all the same, Fagans, all the same names coming through there. No, and even Ballyholand, we've a map on display from 1813, and Magateers and Keenans. You know, it's all the same names, but it's very, very interesting because it tells you where these people were. Yeah. And we've also actually, one more thing I'll tell you about. We've a letter that was written home in 1880 from a man who emigrated. It was a man called Stephen Collins, and he was writing home to his mother asking about was there any work. This man had emigrated about 20 years previously, and he'd gone.
He wanted to come home.
He was lonely. He's a relation of mine, so that's how I managed.
You know him.
So well, I don't know him, but
you know of him.
I know of him. This letter survived in the family, and he was writing home asking, "Is there any work in the woods?" And you know that was relating to the woods in the Hall Estate because that was a big employer.
Shane, do you know what we're going to do? You start next Friday. I'll contact you, and at a day next week for an hour, if you can give me an hour, some afternoon or late morning, I'll come up.
Yeah, I would love that.
And we'll make a little documentary with you.
Yes, yeah, that would be lovely.
God bless you. Go well. And that's beginning on Friday.
It is.
Up at Bagnall's Castle. Well done, Andrew.